Congress doesn't do anything except shout at each other like children. The Supreme Court is out of control. Let's face it needs a drastic reform. And the president, well, he can't accomplish a damn thing.
The largest Muslim countries in the world are not included in this.
Overturn the student loan forgiveness program.
Unless I hate him, in which case I don't want him to accomplish anything.
President Trump's Muslim ban.
Cancel it outright. You can't do that.
Or her. By the way, why haven't we had a female president? Britain had a female leader. Hell, Pakistan had one. Look, any way you slice it, the system is totally broken, and sometimes I feel like it just needs to be burned to the ground. Wait, not like that. Not like that. I don't actually want to burn it to the ground. I just want to feel like I have a voice. But everything is so complicated.
Yes, how our federal government works is complicated, in part because of the checks and balances on power that the framers of the Constitution put in place to prevent a president from becoming a dictator king. Remember, that's what we fought the American Revolution for, so we didn't have to live under a king. So we could have a government of the people, for the people, by the people. Now, you might ask, isn't this the same Constitution that enshrined slavery, wouldn't let women vote, and look the other way about Jim Crow? Yes, it is. But the Constitution also gave us the tools to right these wrongs. But today, many people are starting to wonder if our system can still face big challenges and solve hard problems. And if it can't, then what do we do? Welcome to Civil's 3 Wise Deep. This time, we're starting a multi-part series on your federal government and how it works, or doesn't, many would say. If you feel like the system we have is broken and your voice is drowned out by the loudest voices in the room, by media that monetizes and encourages conflict, and two parties who seem beholden to their extremists, if you think our politics and our national conversation is broken, then we at Civil agree. And this series is for you because you have to understand the system before you can do anything to change it. So back to how the federal government functions. Part A, who makes the laws? The simple answer is Congress does. Congress is often called the first branch of government, as it was established by Article 1 of the Constitution. Congress has two legislative bodies, or houses: the United States House of Representatives, often just called the House, and the U.S. Senate. They meet on opposite sides of the U.S. Capitol building, only about 400 feet apart from each other. The House of Representatives has 435 members. States with bigger populations have more representatives than states with smaller populations. Members of the House are almost never all together on the House floor, except for their class photo. More often, it looks like this. House members are also referred to as representatives or congressmen and women. The United States Senate has 100 members, 2 senators from each of the 50 states. So California with 39 million people and Texas with 30 million people have 2 senators. And so do Alaska, Delaware, North Dakota, South Dakota, Vermont, and Wyoming, all states with a million or fewer residents. For a new law to be made, both the House of Representatives and the Senate have to agree on the exact same language for the legislation, which is called a bill, and then pass that bill through both houses. But of course, it's not that simple. First, some bills run hundreds or even thousands of pages long, so agreeing on the exact same language is a feat in and of itself. Second, while the U.S. House needs to pass this bill via majority vote, the U.S. Senate has internal rules that apply to almost all lawmaking, where 60 of the 100 senators need to agree to a bill, or it dies in the Senate. This is the famed filibuster power that allows the minority party in the Senate to block many, many pieces of proposed legislation. This is what made it so hard for Obama to pass Obamacare in the way he originally proposed it, for example, or so hard for Trump to change immigration policy the way he wanted to. Third, if the legislation is lucky enough to get a majority of votes in the House and a supermajority of 60 votes in the Senate, it is still not law unless the president agrees. He or she can agree by signing the bill, or he can do nothing to block it, and after 10 days, the bill becomes law. But if the president disagrees, he can veto the law.
If you try anything to raise the cost of producing jobs, I will veto it.
If the president vetoes the law, Congress can override this veto if 2/3 of both the House and the Senate vote to override it. That is an extremely high bar. So high that it almost never happens. Obama had 1 veto overridden in 8 years. Trump had 1 veto overridden in 4 years. Biden has had 0 vetoes overridden since he's taken office. There's complexity beyond even that. For example, the Speaker of the House of Representatives and the Majority Leader in the Senate have enormous power to refuse to even consider legislation they don't like. With this many hurdles, it's pretty hard for a new law to get passed. How hard? Well, the most recent Congress passed a grand total of 365 laws from the over 17,000 bills that were introduced during the 2 years it sat. That's about 2%. Thinking about all this, it should start to become clear already why it is so hard to get anything done in the federal government.
The motion is not agreed to.
The motion is not agreed to.
The motion is not agreed to.
While this is frustrating, it is by design. The framers of the Constitution actually wanted to do what political scientists call frustrate power. They were so concerned with preventing a single king or dictator from doing whatever he wanted that they built in all of these checks and balances to make it hard to do. The other thing all this process, all these checks and balances do, or are supposed to do, is force compromise and consensus. If laws pass by consensus, then that helps them survive, and it helps people view them as legitimate. But it feels like we almost never reach consensus anymore. Like, way too much of what happens in Congress is performance on the part of politicians to get on TV or raise money from their most extreme voters. That's probably why only 8% of Americans have significant faith in Congress. And if you think that's a fluke, it isn't. Congress ranks dead last on the list of 16 major institutions in America, year after year after year. We think the media landscape, which promotes conflict to get people to tune in or click, is a big part of the problem. But it's far from the whole story. The political parties, gerrymandering, the modern primary system in the age of social media and information overload play a huge part too. Stay tuned for our future episodes on your federal government, in which we will cover the second branch of government, how the president and the executive branch put laws into action. The third branch of government, how the Supreme Court and lower federal courts resolve disputes about how laws are put into action. The key things outside the formal constitutional structure of the government, which influence it, from the political parties to the role of state governments in shaping federal elections. And finally, some practical, realistic ideas for how to fix what's broken. Oh, and if you, our audience, wants even more about some part of this vast puzzle, let us know. And we just might introduce our upcoming mini documentary series, Civil Stories, with deeper answers to your questions about how your government functions. At Civil, we believe knowledge is power. And one way the powerful stay that way is to count on things being so complicated that you just give up. But rest assured, the more you know, the more you can fight for the kind of country where people can disagree, have civil conversations about their disagreements, and find the sorts of compromises that allow us to tackle the big, complex problems that threaten all of us. The problems that we cannot hope to tackle effectively unless we do it together.